3 consecutive wins to open up the season. There's just no stopping Tyler Reddick in 23-11 right now, is there? Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Circuit of the Americas, the first road course race of the 2026 season. The big circuit that was laid ground back in 2012 for Formula One, but NASCAR came to this circuit in 2021 and a longer configuration, which meant more spread out racing at the time. But last year we introduced a brand new layout to the track, which involves a section where you can involve more passing opportunities. And this was year 2 of the configuration with the debut of a brand new aero package, which meant more horsepower and more burning of the tires. And then we'll find out which drivers will be able to manage their tires the best. In yesterday's race, we had a lot of comers and goers for the most part, but one man was able to stay up front all day and scored an unprecedented 3rd consecutive win to open up the 2026 season. Let's talk about all that happened yesterday at COTA. Number 1, 3 in a row for Tyler Reddick and 2311 Racing. Unprecedented. Tyler Reddick won yesterday's DuraMax Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas, besting Shane Van Gisbergen, Christopher Bell, Ty Gibbs, and Michael McDowell to do it. Unprecedented. That's the word for it. Tyler Reddick has done something that no one has ever done in the history of NASCAR, and that's win the first 3 races of the season for the NASCAR Cup Series. There have been people that have won the opening 2 races of the season in previous years, the most recent being Matt Kenseth back in 2009 when he won the Daytona 500 and the following race at Auto Club Speedway, but he failed to win the following 3rd race at Las Vegas when he lost an engine early on in the event. Yesterday, Tyler Reddick put that thing together and was able to bring home his 3rd straight win of the season and deliver another strong performance for 2311 Racing, the team owned by Denny Hamlin and MJ, Michael Jordan, who was also there at the race yesterday. Now, Reddick started the race on the pole for yesterday's event, but at the early going, he slipped back a couple of spots, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? This guy could be in jeopardy to win 3 consecutive races in a row. It seemed like maybe the car wasn't really doing so well, but from what I'm told, it sounded like he was kind of taking it easy with his tires in the early going and not wanting to push the limit, knowing that we had the brand new horsepower package and running it on a road course for the first time this year, and he didn't want to use up those tires. So when some guys began to fall off, Reddick began to pick them off one by one as we got further into the run in stage 1, and then he was able to set himself up with some great track position at the start of stage number 2, because Reddick decided to forego stage points in stage number 1 and come in and get those tires to put himself in some good position for the start of the second stage, which he found himself up at the front. And despite a couple challenges at the time from Ryan Blaney, Reddick did not look back whatsoever, and then he was able to take home stage number 2. And then get into stage number 3, he was raising up at the front again for most of the race, having to hold up the likes of Ryan Blaney, William Byron, and Shane Van Gisbergen. And let me tell you something, you had to do everything right to beat SVG at his game, because he's been beating the competition the last couple of races when it comes to the road courses. But yesterday, Tyler Reddick never put a foot wrong. He and the 45 team did a great job with a fast race car. Billy Scott called a great race as far as strategy and adjustments that maybe needed to be made, but that 45 car was on rails yesterday. And then we had a late race yellow with about 19 laps to go. When Ross Chastain lost his wheel, it brought some of the leaders down onto pit road. Some of them in the middle of the pack came down, but some of the guys in the top 10, mainly Tyler Reddick, stayed out, electing to hold their track position because they felt like that was more important than fresh tires, and he felt like that the guys that maybe pitted restarting the top 15 wouldn't be able to catch him. And that was the case, as Reddick was able to have himself a nice gap ahead of everybody else, and even though SVG tried those last couple laps of the race to get by Reddick, I think he burned his tires in the process, and Reddick did a great job with defensive driving, being able to nail the corners as far as entry speed and exit. He did a phenomenal job yesterday, and all the credit goes to him and that 45 team. I mean, they're on rails right now, winning the Daytona 500, winning in Atlanta with no right front fender, and winning a race yesterday with the new aero package on a road course. I mean, unbelievable. After all that this team had to deal with in the offseason in the last year or so, basically with the lawsuit and Tyler Reddick, of course, the stuff going on at home with his young son, Rookie. They are off to an incredible start. Perfect amount of points to start 2026. You couldn't ask for a better result. With that being said, as great as the start is, I think next weekend someone else is going to take the top spot from him. Hot streak's going to come to an end at some point, right? However, I will say kudos to Tyler Reddick and the 45 team and a great performance yesterday. 3 consecutive wins over the season. Man, what else is there to say? Number 2, SVG falls short in his quest for 6 consecutive road course wins. Yesterday, there was an opportunity for Shane Van Gisbergen to surpass a tie that he was at the moment of yesterday's race with one of the NASCAR GOATs of NASCAR racing and road course racing, and Jeff Gordon. They were both tied for consecutive wins on a road course with 5 straight for each. Yesterday, SVG had an opportunity to break that record with Jeff Gordon and score 6 consecutive wins on a road course. However, Circuit of the Americas really hasn't been a particularly good track for SVG to try and win at. True, he did win the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race on Saturday, but yesterday in the Cup Series, as great as his car was, it did not seem to look like a winning race car, and he seemed to have a tough time with his tires because once he got into a little bit of a longer run, it seemed like he kind of used his tires in the process to get by a few other guys and just didn't really seem to have the pace to run down the leaders when he was back by about 4 or 5 seconds for the most part in the stages. I mean, he was a little too far back to do anything. I mean, the car was good and the driver was good, but it wasn't good enough. But then when we had that caution where we stacked everybody up with about 18 laps to go, SVG found himself up inside the top 5 with the best restarting, the try position he had for a restart all day yesterday, because guys run different strategies for stage points versus not winning stage points. But he found himself inside the top 5, got a good launch on the restart and at the top of the hill to get up into second place. However, he still cannot get by Tyler Reddick. And again, I will say this. For anybody to beat Shane Van Gisbergen, who has been undoubtedly the best road course racer the last year or so with his abilities, winning 5 consecutive races, beating him in his own game is mighty impressive. I will not deny that. But still, it was a really good points day for the 97 team. Of course, they had a decent guard at Daytona until they got caught up in a wreck. They had overcome 2 incidents last weekend at Atlanta to come home and finish in 6th. And yesterday, a runner-up finish, a solid points day. They'll take that heading into the desert in Phoenix next week. True, they would have loved to win, and they would have loved to have broken the tie with Jeff Gordon and then set the record for the most consecutive wins on a road course. But sometimes streaks have to come to an end, and that's why I feel like it'll happen for Tyler Reddick next week. The streak had to end for SVG winning on road courses. But I've got a feeling that we're going to have a few more road courses on the schedule, and he will be very, very competitive at all of them, and he'll probably win a few of them. Unless the other guys can figure out a way to do what Tyler Reddick just did and maybe use that to their advantage to beat him. So maybe they have a blueprint, who knows? But it was still a great performance by SVG despite falling short in his quest to win 6 consecutive road courses. Number 3, much needed top 5s for Bell and Gibbs. 2 of the Toyota drivers from Joe Gibbs Racing had nice runs yesterday, and they needed those runs to help get their season going. And they were Christopher Bell, the defending winner of this race, who came home in 3rd spot, and Ty Gibbs, the grandson of Joe Gibbs, who came home in 4th spot. For these 2 guys, they needed these results badly. For Christopher Bell, the first 2 races of the season, the results weren't there, but the speed certainly was. They had a really good car in the Daytona 500, but they were caught up in an incident under 10 laps to go where they got knocked into the wall off turn 4 with his teammate Denny Hamlin, which led to the 5-lap dash to the finish. Then last weekend at Atlanta, he had a chance up front to try to win and repeat his win from a year ago, but unfortunately, he left a slight hole open that caused Hocevar stick his nose in there, which there wasn't a big enough hole, and it got Christopher Bell turned around and into the outside wall, knocking him out of contention for the win, and very frustrated with Hocevar's aggressive style there at the very end. But yesterday, Christopher Bell put together a good effort with his car, but it didn't seem like it was a race-winning, contending race car for the most part. And it's a little puzzling because Christopher Bell, he's been really good at road courses. And, of course, everybody knows that Bell's first win on a road in the Cup Series came at a road course at Daytona back in 2021. And I was a little bit shocked to see him not really contend for the win yesterday, even though he pitted late, leading a group of guys onto pit road and was able to charge up to the field with fresher tires. It still was not enough to catch Tyler Reddick or SVG. Even though he gave it everything he had, I think he used a little too much of those tires at the very end and ultimately had to settle for a 3rd place result. But it's a good result to kind of get some momentum going on his side, because with the 2 rough results early on and with this new championship format, points mean everything. And he got a couple points yesterday, but he got a much needed result to help him get closer to the top 16. As he currently sits 24th in points, I don't expect him to be there for long. So a good result yesterday for Bell and the 20 team. Then we go to Ty Gibbs, who's had a miserable start to the season. And it's the same thing as last year, where he had a terrible start to 2025 and just didn't seem to get any luck until about the 9th, 10th race. It only took race number 3 for things to finally go his way. He had caught up in one of the incidents at Daytona. He got wrecked out early in stage 2 last week with Josh Berry in turn number 3. And a lot of people are really starting to scratch their heads like, what is going on with Ty Gibbs? Why is he underperforming right now? Well, yesterday, Gibbs put together a solid performance, qualifying outside the top 10, but quickly charged his way up through the field to get inside the top 10 and remain there for most of the race. Because Ty Gibbs is also a pretty good road course racer that we don't give enough recognition. The only reason we don't talk about him as much is because we're all talking about SVG, Bell, Reddick, Byron, Larson, Elliott, Chastain, all these guys that know how to get around road courses. We can forget that Ty Gibbs is a pretty darn good road course racer. And for a guy that, again, had 2 rough results, he needed a good run yesterday. He needed a top 5 to get some momentum on his side and give the team some confidence going forward into tracks where we will hopefully start to see the expected competitors that we normally see at the front race at the front on a weekly basis. Yesterday was a much needed result for Ty Gibbs and the 54 team. Can the momentum carry into Phoenix next week? We shall see. But regardless, a great top 5 for that 54 team. And also a quick shout out to not finishing in the top 5, but getting a top 10 was Denny Hamlin, his first top 10 of the season. And road courses, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, the last couple of years, particularly with the next-gen cars, it's been an Achilles heel for him. But yesterday, they had a good strategy with the race, fluctuate back and forth with track position, but they found themselves up inside the top 10 late by electing to stay out, and thankfully they didn't get passed by a lot of guys that pitted for fresh tires towards the very end of that last yellow, and he was able to come home with a 10th place result. So a little bit of confidence for the 11 team as they'll head back to the track where they came so close to winning the championship last year, but lost it due to unfortunate circumstances. But much needed top 5 yesterday for Christopher Bell and Ty Gibbs. Great results for both of those guys. Number 4, up and down day for Zilisch. Yesterday, I expected Connor Zilisch, driving the number 88 Trackhouse Racing Chevrolet, to be up front contending for the race win and going up against his teammate and Shane Van Gisbergen in a battle of the road course aces. Well, it got off to a little bit of a difficult start for Connor Zilisch on Saturday when he qualified 25th, and I'm like, 25th? Is that even possible? But I had confidence that he would be able to fight his way up through the pack. And that's exactly what he did. He was able to get inside the top 15, decided to sacrifice some stage points for stage number 1, but that put himself in track position with a great start for stage number 2. Until we got to the top of the hill in turn 1 when he got tapped from behind by Daniel Suarez. It sent the 88 around, but thankfully he didn't hit anybody around there and he was able to recover and charge his way back up through the pack. Then we get into the final stage and he's still charging through the field, and just the way this guy's able to handle road course racing with technically, he is just absolutely unbelievable. And when I saw him get inside the top 5, I'm thinking, he can catch SVG and pass them. The question is, could he maybe challenge Tyler Reddick for the win? Well, we never got to find out, because when we had the final restart of the race, once again at the top of the hill, Connor Zilisch got contact from behind and sent around again. No fault of his own, just an unfortunate circumstance, and he went around and collected guys like Austin Cindric and Eric Jones and Zane Smith. So really unfortunate for Zilisch that he wasn't able to get the result that he would have hoped for. Thankfully, he was able to minimize the damage and was able to recover and finish inside the top 15 in 14th spot. I know they would have loved to have finished inside the top 5, top 10, but considering that their rough results to start the first 2 races of the season, again, drafting tracks, and he's still a rookie, he's still fresh. A top 15 yesterday, despite all that, you can take a little bit of positivity from it and carry forward. I know that the next road course we have, which will be Watkins Glen, he'll be looking forward to getting there and maybe getting some momentum on his side. But an up and down day it was yesterday for the young Connor Zilisch. And number 5, new rules package and dehydrated drivers. Yesterday was a very hot day in Austin, Texas for these guys. 81 degrees, a little bit of wind gust, but nothing cold like we've had the first 2 weeks, whether it was a low humidity day in Florida for the Daytona 500 or windy conditions and cold in Atlanta last weekend. Yesterday, these guys battled the heat conditions with the brand new aero package that we had. Again, the 750 horsepower package that we're running on tracks a mile shorter, as well as the road courses for 2026. And it meant an increase of 750 horsepower, and that also meant more burning of the tires, and had to put the control of the race car back in the hands of the drivers to manage those tires. Well, how did the racing go yesterday? For the first road course race, it was okay. There was some passing in the race for sure, especially when it came to differing strategies of guys on fresh tires versus guys on older tires. But once the pack got a little bit spread out, it was a little bit tough for guys to run other competitors down unless if there was massive tire fall off, which there was some, but not a lot of it yesterday, like I think a lot of us expected it to be. And again, it's only the first race with this new aero package and a points event to see how the drivers would handle with tire management and increased horsepower. But these guys, there would be some passing opportunities through turn number 1, turn number 19, turn 20, and of course through turn 6A to 6B. You can't really pass in the S's because those tight turns right there, it's really, really tough to get alongside somebody and race side by side for position in those areas. But there were some passing opportunities and passing yesterday, but you needed somebody in front of you to kind of really have, massive tire fall off depending on what strategy they were on. But that wasn't all the drivers faced yesterday. They also had to battle, again, the heat. And some guys towards the end of the race yesterday were absolutely exhausted, to the point where even late in the race, Alex Bowman, who was having a struggle of a day, pulled his car behind the wall because he wasn't feeling good and he was completely dehydrated inside the race car. So who does the 48 team go get to try to finish the race yesterday? Well, how about Myatt Snyder, son of Marty Snyder, who actually is working for the Fox Productions team, but also is a part-time driver in the O'Reilly Auto Parts series. They called on Myatt Snyder to get in the car and run the 48 to the checkered flag of the race yesterday, which he did, but it also shows, the tricky conditions of the heat that the drivers were battling yesterday, and some cool suits were failing. Basically, Alex Bowman was released from the care center, thankfully okay, but he was just too dehydrated to finish the race yesterday. And then AJ Allmendinger, he toughed it out yesterday, finishing in 9th spot, with really good top 10 for him. But post-race, if you saw while Tyler Reddick was celebrating, Allmendinger actually had to be tended to by medical staff because he was absolutely dehydrated to the point where they had to put him on the stretcher and lead him to the medical center. But thankfully, he got fluids in his system afterwards. He was absolutely fine. He just said the heat, it was a battle yesterday. I mean, again, as I mentioned, some cool suits failed. I think Kyle Larson had problems with his cool suit yesterday, but he still toughed it out and able to come home with a 6th place result. But the drivers had to battle the tire wear, new aero package, and the heat yesterday in COTA. Yikes, what a long day. Now we're going to be off to another hot track next weekend in the desert at Phoenix Raceway. The last time we were there, we decided a champion of the sport with Kyle Larson emerging victorious as the 2025 Cup Series champion, much to the detriment of Denny Hamlin, who had the dominant car and had the car to win the title. Unfortunately, the late yellow and circumstances did not go in his favor. He's hoping to return with a little bit of vengeance. Kyle Larson hoping to come back to the track where he won the championship last year and carry it up with another win. But of course, it's the first oval short track race with the aero package next week, so we'll see how tire fall off works for some of these guys and how much passing opportunities there will be on this track. And it'll be a very fun weekend, not just for NASCAR, but we're also going to have the IndyCar Series that weekend, the Desert Double. The IndyCar Series will run on Saturday for their coverage on Fox, and then the Cup Series will run Sunday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be a hot weekend with two of the most iconic American motorsports coming together on the same weekend to battle it out in the desert. So who's going to emerge victorious in the desert next week, and who's going to be left wondering, oh gee, what did I do wrong? We're going to find out all that when we get to Phoenix next week. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Subscribe, like, and congrats once again to Tyler Reddick and the 45 team on 3 consecutive wins to open up the season with yesterday's victory at COTA. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing!